learning outcomes. After studying this module, you should be able to understand the teaching of the Buddha, know about the Noble Eightfold Path, learn about the three characteristics of practice, analyze the Eightfold Path. Introduction. Gautama Buddha's teachings provided the base for the formation of Buddhism as a most momentous religious and philosophical movement for more than 1,000 years in India and dissemination extensively into other parts of Asia. Buddhism asserts that life is a progression of endless adjustment. Thus, it indulges in using this information for its benefit. In other words, it believes that one can amend itself for the advancement. For Buddhism, the most vital aspect in improving an individual is altering oneself is through the process of mind, and Buddhism has established various approaches meant for functioning of the mind. Buddhist practice meditation usually exists as a technique of evolving additional constructive conditions of mind, which are categorized by composed attentive consciousness and reactions such as sociability. By making use of this mindfulness, which is established through reflection, it is probable to have a complete knowledge of one's own self, other individuals, in addition to life itself. Buddhists don't pursue to or compel some other individuals to embrace their belief. Nevertheless, they do strive for making its knowledge accessible to whosoever remains involved. The Eightfold Path is common to most Buddhist traditions, and secular Buddhists reflect the Eightfold Path to be the most significant aspect of their practice. The Eightfold Path is considered as a guide for areas to explore and practice. As it has been observed, there is great wisdom in this path, all of which can be implemented and used in everyday life. While practicing and using the path, one can learn to comprehend life realistically, without delusions, and help one to cope with lot of mental noise and anguish. Thus, an individual profits in numerous other ways. 8 paths of the route to emancipation are categorized in 3 important features of Buddhist undertaking moral conduct, which are right speech, right action, right livelihood, mental discipline, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, and wisdom, right understanding, right thought, which are deliberated in detail in this module later. The Buddha imparted the Eightfold Path in almost entire dialogues. In addition to this, guidelines exist as vibrant then applied to this supporters today, such as they remained while he provided them for the first time. Virtually the entire philosophy of the Gautama Buddha, towards which he dedicated 45 odd years, constituted to some extent with the areas, deciding upon the phase of their growth in addition to their capability to comprehend and follow him. Buddha elucidated his teaching in distinct manner as well as in dissimilar terminology to different individuals. Nevertheless, the core of such thousand treaties was distributed among the scriptures is brought into being in the Eightfold Noble Path. One ought to keep in mind that these classifications or categorizations of the path ought to be chartered and accomplished in the order one subsequent to the other in the direction which is presented in the normal category overhead. However, they be situated to progress in similar way at the same time by means of probable conferring in the direction of the ability of every person. This indicates all are related with each other. Besides, each supports the progress of another individual. Gradual development of the Eightfold Path. The Buddha, with his immeasurable wisdom, was aware about the fact all individuals are not equally capable of reaching transcendent development at one time. Therefore, he explicated the Noble Eightfold Path intended for the continuing expansion of the divine mode of life in a real world system. He recognized to the fact not all individuals could turn out to be faultless in one's lifespan. He assumed that Sila, Samadhi, and Pana need as well as can be established over a lot of lifespans by means of thorough struggle. Eventually, this results in the fulfillment of definitive reconciliation somewhere there is on no account insufficiency. Each individual is stimulated in the direction of modifying their destiny in relation to Eightfold Noble Truths, which were imparted by the Buddha. He asserted that those individuals who normalizes their experience in agreement to this principled means of existing will be able to free themselves from despair as well as adversity equally in this lifespan, plus henceforth he would equally remain capable to improve his awareness by limiting as of malicious besides perceiving ethics. The fourth most significant truth taught by the Buddha is the Noble Eightfold Path. The Buddha, who is considered as a skilled divine practitioner, has recognized an ailment which affects entire procedures of lifespan, as well as it is referred to as dukkha or unfulfillment. Later on at that time, he identified the reason of being having a feeling of not being satisfied to be self-centered, self-indulgent and longing for more. He revealed that there is a treatment aimed at this ailment, which he named as nibbana, the state where all unsatisfactoriness comes to an end. For this unsatisfactoriness, he prescribed the Noble Eightfold Path. As soon as a proficient clinician treats a client meant for a grave disorder, his remedy is not just intended for treating physical ailment. On the other hand, it is also meant to cure psychological ailment. The Noble Eightfold Path, which is prominent to help in eliminating the misery, includes the assimilated remedy aimed to treat the malady of samsara through ethical discourse and accomplishment. The expansions of the thoughts, in addition to the broad modification of one's level of cognizing and immanence of knowledge. This one shows the individual with a path to expand divine development as well as be at large, get completely freed from distress. The three practices. This route has been distributed along three groups of exercises called three practices. The three practices are morality, sila, which comprises of acts like upright behavior, taking precepts. Concentration, samadhi. This includes reflection, emotional growth. Wisdom, prajna, contains vision, clarification. The Eightfold Paths. One of the most significant characteristics of the teaching of the Buddha involved the implementation of the Eightfold Path, which is known as the Middle Route. Gautam Buddha guided his supporters to keep an eye on this way as a means to evade the overindulgence of sensory inclinations as well as degradation. It can be assumed that this path be situated a virtuous means of natural life that doesn't promote the recognition of judgments specified by means of somebody external to oneself. An individual practices this path, the attendant aimed at ethical behavior. It is not because of the dread of some paranormal action, on the other hand, through the inherent worth in attaining such an accomplishment. He decided on this self induced control aimed at a convinced termination in outlook. This path is an intended option of internal values as well as development. An individual is able to attain actual evolvement in uprightness besides awareness by embracing this route instead of doing peripheral worship in addition to devoting oneself. The Buddha supposed that a person who exists in agreement with the Dharma would get directed as well as safeguarded by the same rule. It is observed that an individual exists in accordance to Dharma. Then that person would be able to attain synchronization by means of the widespread commandment and rule. The first sermon was given by Gautama Buddha in the deer park. He initiated the turning of the Dharma wheel. He picked the striking sign of the wheel, which he had 8 spindles to be denote the noble eightfold path. The Buddha's teaching is compared to the wheel, similar to it. His teaching also revolves around identical to the great wheel that under no circumstances rests prominent to the vital theme of the wheel is the center, which is the sole area that is stable nirvana. The 8 spindles on the wheel indicate the noble eightfold path. In the similar fashion as each spindle is required for the wheel to make it rotating, one requires to monitor every phase of the path. Morality, that is sila, has 3 components: right speech, right action, right livelihood. Mental culture, which refers to as samadhi, has right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Wisdom, which is referred to as prajna or pana, has right understanding, right thoughts. First, right understanding can be described as the knowledge of oneself as one really is. The key aspect of Buddhism is the right understanding. It also refers to that one is able to perceive the nature of anything wholesome karma. Advantages are in addition to unwholesome karma, disadvantages. Besides, in what way they can be accomplished by ways of the form, communication as well as thoughts. By understanding karma, an individual will acquire to avoid bad as well as do well. In this manner, generating encouraging results in one's existence. As soon as an individual is able to understand correctly, he likewise recognizes the three characteristics of life that entirely compounded possessions remain momentary, subjected to anguish as well as lacking a self, also comprehends the law of dependent initiation. Those individuals who have comprehensive understanding are those who are able to not remain unaware. Also, due to this insight, one is able to eradicate the main causes of malicious from one's thought, due to which they become enlightened. Right understanding is the initial phase of this path. By means of this, one can gain positioning in addition to coordination to the additional phases of the path. If in case anything turns out to be incorrect, it would lead to all getting wrong. Thus, it can be observed that it is the complete as well as comprehensive, impartial, and perceptive knowledge and awareness of the whole mechanism. There are two types of understanding. The first being the knowledge that we attain ourselves on the way to reflection, and the second is our knowledge that we all obtain over and done with other individuals, attained by learning. Nevertheless, in both circumstances, if one needs to develop measures of one's existing involvement, one need to consider that whatever anyone perceives as well as observed, planned as well as educate, well thought out as well as resolute. Right understanding is usually distinguished into dual phase. The initial facet is the knowledge of the opinion of the causal relationship in the domain of ethical accountability of our activities and conducts. Besides this, the next main features are the comprehensive knowledge of the Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, Three Universal Truths, etc. Once we designate right understanding in numerous ways, entirely these indulgences remain divergent to lack of knowledge, towards affection, on the way to predicament and the phase of birth and passing away. Second, right thought. It has been assumed that the right understanding in the person leads an individual to develop right thought. This facet is every now and then is also known as right resolution, right desires, as well as right notions. The next feature of the Noble Eightfold Path is consequently samkappa, the English meaning right resolution, right aspirations, doesn't express the concrete denotions of the Pali word. Right thoughts or right awareness moves towards more rapidly to the implication. Right thoughts possibly will be advocated as to the close English comparable. Though right understanding removes obliviousness, right thought eliminates yearning or self indulgence, disgust or resentment, and misapprehensions or lack of knowledge. Therefore, this understanding and right thought eradicate the effects of distress. Right thought thus denotes towards the conceptual state that disregards erroneous notion or concepts as well as encourages the additional moral factors to be heading for nibbana. This issue attends to a dual persistence of eradicating malicious opinions and evolving wholesome point of view. Right thought is noteworthy because it is one's thought which purify a person. It has been observed that there are three facets to right thought. The initial one involves an individual should preserve an attitude of impartiality from worldly preferences, reasonably in contrast to being uncaringly devoted to them. An individual must remain altruistic in his or her thoughts and think of the well being of others. Second one should sustain loving kindness, goodwill, and compassion in mind, which is divergent to hatred, ill will, or aversion. Third one should act which is in contrast to cruelty and lack of consideration for others. As a person progresses along the spiritual path, his thoughts will become progressively compassionate, harmless, selfless, and filled with love and consideration. Right understanding and right thought, which are wisdom factors, will lead to good moral conduct. There are three factors under moral conduct: right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Third, right speech. The initial paths are related to the three paths. Allied to ethics is right speech. This path is grounded upon the belief of fairness and exchange. Right speech comprises respect for truth and respect for the welfare for others. Thus, it deals with avoid lying. As soon as one lie, we allow ourselves to live devoid of uprightness. As a group, lying generates a society of deception. Avoid slander or backbiting. It is disruptive in addition to produces arguments among friends. Avoid harsh words. A cruel term can wound other more intensely than artilleries. Avoid idle talks. Spiteful conversation, besides narrating mistakes of others, are futile discussions. We have repeatedly undervalued the influence of dialogue and have a tendency to use minute control in excess of our faulty communication. Nevertheless, all of us did get offended by somebody's confrontations at more or less some time of our lifetime. Besides, correspondingly, we have got stimulated by the verses of some other persons. It is supposed that a severe expression can hurt even more intensely than any artilleries or other hand. A kind word can transform the soul as well as mind of the even tough-ended criminal. Thus, in order to cultivate a harmonious humanity, one ought to nurture in addition to speak in a positive manner. We communicate words which are frank, carry harmony, gentle, and expressive. The Buddha on one occasion held that a kind speech is sweetened as honey, honest dialogue is striking like a flower, as well as incorrect speech is unwholesome like dirt. Right action. Another feature which comprises of virtues, moral behavior is right action. It is rightly said, whatever one say doesn't matter much in front of how one conduct himself or herself. I. Action speaks louder than words. Thus, one should keep in mind while criticizing others what we do ourselves. Right actions involves admiration for natural life, reverence for assets, and high opinion for personal relationship. It corresponds to the first three of the five precepts to be practiced by every Buddhist, which is valued by all, and all tremor at reprimand, all fear death, as well as knows the significance of life. Keeping in awareness the doctrines of equivalence and mutual benefit. Do not kill. One should value life. Do not steal. Reverence for assets. Do not have sexual misconduct and adultery. Admiration for private license. These three actions are essentially the first three of the five precepts and also the 10 wholesome actions. If these guiding principles are naturally nurtured inside the social order, such culture will be an enhanced habitation for living. Fifth, right livelihood is another factor which comes under moral conduct, which deals with how we earn our living in society. It is an extension of the two other factors of right speech and right action, which refers to the respect for truth, life, property, and personal relationships. The Buddha said, "Do not earn your living by harming others. Do not seek happiness by making others unhappy." This means choosing a job that does not hurt others. Precisely at present, five types of means of support are not advised for those who want to follow Buddhists: dealing in animals for killing, transaction of slaves, dealing in armaments, trading in poisons, dealing in intoxicants, example drug, alcohol, drinks. The application of worthy behavior spawns inside the person an inward harmony, strength, safety, and asset. Now, this person is prepared to run through the other phases of the path. Right effort in mental development. Right effort refers to nurturing dynamically a positive attitude towards our endeavors with interest. Nevertheless, right effort should under no circumstances become too tense, too extreme, and correspondingly, it should not become too slack and abundant. Taking the middle way, right effort is the controlled, sustained, enthusiastic, and cheerful determination. It is determination to avoid unwholesome thought from rising. It is an effort to discard unwholesome thoughts once they have arisen. It is the effort to promote wholesome thoughts. In conclusion, it is the effort to maintain wholesome thoughts. The last one is predominantly significant because most people may retreat in the pursuit of the Buddhist way. Right effort is thoroughly related with right mindfulness. The practice of mindfulness is essential in Buddhism. Right effort means that we cultivate a positive attitude and have enthusiasm in the things we do, whether in our careers, in our study, or in our practice of the Dhamma. With such a sustained enthusiasm and cheerful determination, we can succeed in the things we do. There are four aspects of right effort, two of which refer to evil and the other two to good. The attempt to discard malicious that has already occurred, the struggle to inhibit the occurrence of yet not occurred, the challenge to cultivate unrisen good, and attempt to stimulate the good that has already taken place. Right mindfulness. Right effort is closely associated with right mindfulness. The practice of mindfulness is significant in Buddhism. The Buddha said that mindfulness is the one way to attain the end of suffering. Mindfulness can be established by being continuously cognizant of four particular aspects: body, awareness of the positions of our physical body, such as limbs, feeling pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, movements of consciousness, external objects. They have continued to play an important role in the practice of Buddhist meditation. Mindfulness is essential even in our daily life, in which we act in full awareness of our actions, feelings, and thoughts, as well as that of our environment. The mind should always be clear and attentive, relatively then distracted and clouded. 8th, right concentration. Right mindfulness leads to right concentration. It is ever so often called meditation or tranquility. When one practices concentration, one frequently emphasizes the mind on object, which may be physical or mental, steadily, and eventually it leads to the ability to rest the mind upon the object without distraction. With the guidance of an experienced teacher, one can achieve single pointedness when one's ability in the kind of meditation is developed. It has two main benefits. First, it leads to mental and physical well being, comfort, joy, calm, tranquility. Second, it turns the mind into an instrument capable of seeing things as they really are, preparing the mind to attain wisdom. Right concentration is an instrument to attain wisdom, the real heart of Buddhism. A concentrated mind acts as a powerful aid to see things as they truly are by means of penetrative insight. The Noble Eightfold Path is the fourth important truth taught by the Buddha. The Noble Eightfold Path, the path leading to the end of suffering, is an assimilated therapy intended to cure the disease of samsara through the cultivation of moral speech and action, the expansion of the mind and the thought, transformation of one's level of understanding and quality of thought. It shows the way to gain spiritual maturity and be released completely from suffering. Following the Noble Eightfold Path can be compared to cultivating a garden, but in Buddhism, one cultivates one's wisdom. Summary: Gautam Buddha's teaching provided the base for the formation of Buddhism as a most momentous religious and philosophical movement for more than 1,000 years in India and dissemination extensively into other parts of Asia. The Eightfold Path is common to most Buddhist traditions, and secular Buddhists reflects the Eightfold Path to be most significant aspect of their practice. The Eightfold Path is considered as a guide for areas to explore and practice. Eight paths of the path to emancipation are categorized into three important fundamentals of Buddhist practice: moral conduct, mental discipline, and wisdom. Amongst the Eightfold Path, the first two belongs to wisdom and the last three belong to concentration. The remaining three belongs to morality. In Buddhism, the morality is founded on the principle of equal opportunity as well as the principle of mutual benefit. In order to accomplish wisdom, one must cleanse the thoughts, cultivate the thoughts by means of meditation. As a consequence, intellectual growth is essential for understanding. At the same time, intellectual growth can also benefit in protection, our practice of good conduct or moral, as it can build up and regulate our mind. The third principle is wisdom. The word prajna in Sanskrit refers to wisdom. Prajna is viewed as illumination, which is the crucial goal of Buddhism, as well as the significant component of Buddhism. Eight practices of the ways to emancipation can be categorized along three important fundamentals of Buddhist practice, which are described as moral conduct, right speech, right action, right livelihood; mental discipline, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration; and wisdom, right understanding, right thought. According to this perspective, the way which leads to the culmination of misery is an assimilated remedy intended to treat the ailment of samsara over and done with the refinement of ethical discourse. In addition to one's deed, the growth of the thought along with the thorough transformation of one's level of knowledge and value of thought.